Just like Michelangelo into the blue on heavenly wings. Cargo ham bones don't take off, no smoke, no mirror, no strings. I can't take off these dark shades. I can only say how it's too beautiful. Our town on TV. Our town, there's you and me. Upside down, hanging out of an airplane.
Welcome to Our Town. I'm your host, Larry Frost, and today we're at the Amesbury Public Library for a memorial celebration for Mark Lankin. So please stay tuned.
We have gathered today to celebrate the life of our good friend Mark Allen Lankin. And we wanted to begin by inviting the members of his family to come up closer to the front of the hall, up front of the room here. But as I look out, I'm seeing some members of the family way back. So, Lindsay, come up higher. My name is Mike Shirley. I had the joy and privilege of being a friend to Mark and Lindsay, along with my wife Edna. And Edna and I were partners in crime in a variety of ways to the activities of Mark as we worked for literacy and numeracy in Amesbury. More about that later, I think. But now I'd like to ask, how are we doing with getting Lindsay? Lindsay, okay, good. Something just happened behind me. I'd like to ask Laurie Pierce to come and speak.
I want to make sure everybody sees me. Thank you all for coming. It's an honor for me to be a part of this celebration. I'd like to just take a moment to thank the many people, and I'm sure I won't cover them all, the people that have helped put this together. Larry Frost for taking the video today, the Rotary, Jim Babin and his gang for helping me set up and helping me through many other things along the way. The Amesbury Public Library staff, if it wasn't for them, I don't know where I'd be. Certainly a great group of friends and family. The friends of the Amesbury Public Library and our trustees. So I want to thank you all. Thanks so much. I'd like to introduce the family. And first off is Lindsay, Mark's wonderful wife, and she is here today. And then we have Mark's sister, Anita Gibbs. And her husband, Jerry, and are your children? Robin is here, and Brian and Ann are not able to be with us. Brian, okay. There is Aunt Marilyn Zietz and cousin Shelley and cousin Susie. They're all here today. And I'd like to mention that Mark's cousin Marlene Coleman and her children Audrey, Craig, and Stuart were not able to attend today. Then Lindsay's family, Patty Coleman and her husband, Dr. Bruce Coleman. And their son, Andrew.
Andrew was a good time.
Yes. And Peter is not able to attend. Lindsay's brother, John Wallace, and his friend, Trish Turner. John's daughters, Ashley, Abby, and Allie, were not able to be here today. And then Lindsay has a sister, Ann, and she is in Austria, and her son, Kurt, is in Thailand, so they are not able to be with us today. And then 3 more that are not able to be with us today are the cats, Sasha, Taz, and Creamsicle. Thank you.
Thank you, Laurie. We'll be hearing more from Laurie in a bit. We have been asking folks to consider sharing something with the wider group. And after a series of discussions that have gone on for about 3 weeks, I'd like to begin by asking Shelley Zeitz, Mark's cousin, to speak to us. Shelley, would you come up here, please?
You couldn't ask for a better family member than Mark. He was a wonderful son, he was a good brother, he was a good nephew, and a wonderful cousin. I never had a brother, but I was blessed to have Mark for a cousin. It was the same thing. If there was a death in the family, if there was an illness in the family, Mark was the first person everybody went to and could be counted on for any kind of help you needed. Moral support, physical errands to be run, whatever was needed, he was there. He is probably the best person I ever met in my life, family or not. And I'm going to miss him. I'm trying to think what else to say. I mean, he was bright, he was witty, he was just a pleasure to know on every level. And I'm glad I got to know him, and I'm sorry he passed away so soon.
And John Wallace.
Hello. I'm from Washington, D.C., so the first thing I'd like to do is apologize to the residents of Massachusetts and New Hampshire for bringing this heat with me on my trip. First thing I'd like to do is just read something from our sister Ann, who couldn't make it here. As it was mentioned, she's in Austria studying, and so she just wanted to pass this little poem along to me from Wendell Berry. And she begins by saying, "For Mark, the man I always loved, who will always be family in my heart. Radiances know him, grown lighter than breath. He is set free in our remembering. Grown brighter than vision, he goes dark into the life of the hill that holds his peace. He's hidden among all that is and cannot be lost. The first thing that I know that you'd notice about Mark was his smile and his sparkle in his eyes. And the third thing you would notice that would come to your attention was his dome, or the lack of hair upon it. Apparently that's the way it was always supposed to be, because as I understand it, he had those great eyes, big smile, and the lack of hair pretty much all of his life. I don't know of any other way to describe Mark other than a big old teddy bear, one that you just want to hug and squeeze because he's so lovable. Mark loved and was loved. When I was first introduced to him by my sister Lindsay, I didn't know what to make of the two of them together. I've never seen two people more in love. Always close, always touching, always kissing, and just madly in love with each other. And I was like, what gives? I've never seen two people act like this except for maybe in the 6th grade. That's what I want to touch on today. Love is a gift, and Mark and Lindsay were blessed with that gift. Unfortunately, too few ever find that gift. For me, the thing that I'm most grateful to Mark for was that gift of love he gave my sister. Lindsay gave that gift right back to him, and I'm so happy that she found true happiness in her life with Mark. She will always have that, and no one can ever take that away. Although Mark was taken from us much too soon, he gave and was given a gift too few have ever found in their lives. And for that, I will always be happy for him. Mark had another special gift, the gift of friendship. So I don't want to end without acknowledging Mark's friends who were true heroes the last 8 months. Good people help good people, and Mark's friends and neighbors came to help, bearing compassion, support, caring, sharing, and most of all, love. For my sisters and I, who could not be here to help take care of Mark and look after our sister, we are so very grateful. How lucky to have such friends. Mark's life was too brief for a good soul like him, but his life was full of the best gifts one could ever hope for. May we all be so fortunate. May Mark rest in peace, and may we all walk this earth with a smile on our faces when we think of when our thoughts turn to Mark and we think of the gifts that he gave us and the gifts he was given. Thank you.
This amazing family, with the gifts that it shares so easily with the world, came into the community of Amesbury in the person of our friend Mark, and immediately set off things happening. And a number of the friends and colleagues of Mark's from here in Amesbury wanted to take some time to just share some of our experience of Mark with Lindsay and the rest of his family. So listen up, gang, as the folks from Amesbury reflect back some of the gift that you've mentioned to us so well in that presentation, John. I'd like to begin, I've just collected a bunch of names of people, and I've tried to put them in some kind of order, but begin where I can. Deb Carey, how far into the crowd are you? Can you come up and speak now?
I'll be quick though. Let's see. I'm going to just say a few things. The first thing is, of course, that we all love Mark for his sense of humor. I mean, Mark was my best friend. There's no question he was my best friend here. And, I really couldn't survive without his sense of humor. So the first thing I want to do is read a little something from the Nancy Drew's Guide to Life. This is because I sent to him the Pretty Little Joke Book, which is my joke compendium, and without it, I don't know how to tell jokes. So Mark was the king of etiquette, and I just put a little marker in here. This is from The Delicate Art of Etiquette. Learning a new craft will make you chatter on incessantly about the art form. Be careful not to bore your less artsy friends. That, I think, is important. Humor the older generation and do a few activities once in a while that they'll enjoy. I know we all agree with that. And just remember that a good hostess directs guests away from an elderly friend's favorite chair. Lindsay, I sent Mark little gifties during this whole little ordeal that he had. And I had some gifties left over. So over there on the corner are some more comic books, just in case he wanted to read one. This one has President Outlaw's Superheroes. And then I also have a poem to read. And this is a little more somber note, but you gotta mix it up a little. This is called End and a Beginning. After each war, somebody has to clean up. Put things in order. By itself, it won't happen. Somebody's got to push rubble to the highway shoulder, making way for the carts filled up with corpses. Somebody might trudge through muck and ashes, sofa springs, splintered glass, and blood-soaked rugs. Somebody has to haul beams for propping a wall, another put a glass in a window, hang the door on hinges. This is not photogenic, and it takes years. Bridges are needed, also new railroad stations, tatters turn into sleeves for rolling up. Somebody, broom in hand, still recalls how it was. Someone whose head was not torn away listens nodding, but nearby, already beginning to bustle those who will need persuasion. Somebody still at times digs up from under the bushes some rusty quibble to add to burning refuse. Those who knew what this was all about must yield to those who know little or less than little, essentially nothing. In the grass that has covered effects in causes, somebody must recline, a stalk of rye in his teeth, oogling the clouds. And to me, that was Mark. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Deb. Now could I ask Nancy Theriault to come on?
Hi, I'm Nancy Theriault. I met Mark, actually I just want to start off with when she said he was her best friend. I said, wait a minute, he was my best friend.
Didn't we all say that?
And that's what I'm saying. One of the things that, as I look out here, and so many people are here, I realize that Mark had a lot of best friends because that's the kind of person he was. He was the best friend you could ever meet, and he would meet people and he would become their best friend because he was perhaps one of the nicest people I've ever run into. And he was an outgoing person who, when he met you, he would reach out to you and he would find out, what do you need? What do you want? How can I help? That was Mark. And we met through the partnership, the Amesbury Adult Learning and Literacy Partnership. I have a different partnership, but Mark said, oh, another partnership. What do you need? What can I do? And he did. And then he would call and he'd joke about it and he'd listen when I said, ah. He was a good friend. He was my best friend and your best friend and your best friend. And I miss him, as we all will.
Staying in that same category of Amesbury Learning and Literacy Partnership, Irene Chalik, could you come up? One more best friend.
Lindsay family. Just want you all to know I was truly his best friend. Mark and I met 8 years ago when he became the director at the library, and I was here working with Northern Essex Community College, and we were working on developing a community partnership. As soon as I was introduced to Mark, I invited him to be part of that partnership, and he just jumped in with both feet. And it was never a moment of uncertainty and hesitation. And Nancy said it well. I mean, his interest was just to know what it was we needed and to work with us and to make that happen. And he single-handedly did some astounding things for us and for the residents of Amesbury and the surrounding communities. He helped the partnership to attain nonprofit status, and that's really a big deal because that allows us to do some fundraising. And Mark additionally did the fundraising for us and helped us add classes to our program here. So through his tireless efforts, lots of people in these communities have the ability to come to an adult learning center and where they gain the skills that they need to change their lives. So there are obviously way more than the people here who have Mark to thank. Everyone who has the privilege of knowing Mark recognized his even temper, pragmatism, ethics, kindness, and of course his keen sense of humor that formed the basis of his friendships and professional relationships as well, including our own. But as I said earlier, we had the closest friendship. And part of it was because we shared our Jewish culture, and there was something unique about that aspect of our relationship. Whenever we spoke or Mark emailed me, he'd always use Jewish humor. And it would range from anything from using Yiddish phrases, or quoting Talmudic scholars, or plays on words and names. He was especially creative with my last name. And I was referred to as Mrs. Bucolic. Or what were some of the others? Mrs. Folic Acid. And then he would sign his name in very strange ways, sometimes with sort of a Jewish flavor to it, other times just Mark. But his humor didn't have to make sense or be consistent or be factual. He made me laugh all the time, and even when I was having a bad day. And I will miss him very much. And Mark's passion was to help others through individual and community service, and ultimately to make the world a better place. And I also have a poem for him. It's written by Bessie Stanley, often attributed to Ralph Waldo Emerson. It's called Success. You probably all know it. He has achieved success who has lived well, laughed often, and loved much, who has gained the respect of intelligent men and the love of little children, who has filled his niche and accomplished his task, who has left the world better than he found it, whether by an improved copy, a perfect poem, or a rescued soul, who has never lacked appreciation of earth's beauty or failed to express it, who has always looked for the best in others and given them the best he had, whose life was an inspiration, whose memory a benediction. We'll miss you.
Let's see, Chris DeRocky. Right, is Chris. Thank you. Okay.
Good afternoon. It's amazing if you really look around the room at the number and the variety of people. Mark had an exceptional and extreme impact on this community. Mark was a devoted husband. It's evident that Lindsay was the most important part of his life. He often spoke about her in conversation. He always had a sparkle in his eye. It's funny to be standing here because 11 years ago, there was a long table here, and the trustees first met Mark. They interviewed Mark for the job of library director. He was the obvious choice and was unanimously chosen. I was Mark's trustee. I was his chairman for the fundraising committee, and I was his best friend. Mark was extremely intelligent. He was a dedicated professional, a gentleman. He directed the library with a loving hand. He was dedicated to his staff. He was protective of his staff. He didn't have staff. He didn't have employees. He had family members who worked here. Mark's management style was unique. As a library trustee, I remember sitting around the table quite a few times and having diametrically opposed opinions on certain issues. But before the night was over, Mark could always guide you through intellect, through common sense, to a consensus that everyone could live with and everyone could leave feeling good about. He always smiled. He never panicked. He always had a plan. He was a tireless worker. He worked with every committee on the expansion effort. When you hire someone, the town of Amesbury could have gotten someone that worked 9 to 5 and then drove all the way home to Manchester, but Mark was never like that. He had about 14 other things that he had to do before he could go home. And you've heard about it. I've heard the same things over and over about Mark, about his kindness, about his humor. Mark was a Rotarian, and if you ever saw him in his cape and sombrero, you would shake your head. But Mark, that didn't bother him. I think he enjoyed it. He really had a great sense of humor. For 11 years, I had extreme trust and confidence in Mark, except for once, and I remember the date and the time and the issue. In December of 2003, you know, Mark was originally from Philadelphia, and the Patriots were playing the Eagles, and he steadfastly told me that the Eagles were going to beat the Patriots in the playoffs. To truly celebrate Mark's life, we should incorporate things from his life or rekindle things that he's shown us. And I thought about the many conversations that I had with Mark, and I thought about Mark as the man. And 3 things came to my mind, and I've heard them throughout by other people. Love. It's human nature to take love for granted, but Mark will teach you to let the people you love know that they're loved. Show them. Patience and compassion. Mark believed that there was a diamond in the soul of every single human being. They were unmined, they were uncut, they were unpolished, but Mark could mine them, he could cut them, he could polish them, he could make them shine. He really loved people. Friendship. Because of Mark and the way he was and the many, many best friends that he had, I urge you to get in touch with an old friend, reestablish a friendship. And more importantly, as Mark always did, take the time, make the effort, make a new friend. I'll always remember Mark. He has a place in my heart.
I guess then it's time for Mike Pelletier to speak, since we've got into the staff, the family of the library.
Good afternoon. I've been asked by David Hilt, who couldn't be here today. He and his wife are away on a family obligation. So first I'm going to read something that David has composed for today. To all have come here today, family and friends of Mark Lankin, staff and trustees of the Amesbury Public Library, and all the many library users and members of the community whose lives were touched by Mark. My wife Kate Broughton and I deeply regret that we can't be with you for this memorial service. We are on the road returning from a family reunion, otherwise we would certainly have been here to join this family, which during Mark's 8 years of service in Amesbury came to know and admire him for his commitment, his warmth, and his integrity. Both of us, Kate as a library trustee and member of the Building Expansion Committee, and I as mayor, had the chance to see Mark in action on a regular basis for many years. Mark's dedication to broadening the literacy of our community was exemplary. His good humor was infectious. His loyalty and his appreciation for his staff clearly evident. And his determination to find a solution for the Amesbury Public Library's overcrowded conditions, which continue today, never faltered. Even after the disappointing results of the recent public referendum, Mark's belief in the importance of providing the community with the best possible service remains strong and true. Kate and I stand ready to continue the work that Mark began here in Amesbury and look forward to helping realize his dream of a facility that blends traditional library services with the latest technology and a gathering place where the community can share, learn, and grow together. Thanks, Mark, for all you did for Amesbury and for the Amesbury Public Library. You will be missed and you will remain in our thoughts always. And that is David's words. And then I'd like to say, I would like to speak on behalf of so many of us here who were current staff, former staff, and say that we as a staff now have served 85 years here at the Amesbury Public Library. And some of us thank our lucky stars for having served under Mark for his 8 years while he was here at the Amesbury Public Library. He was a boss who at any time you could go to his office and ask him, I need something, and the first words out of his mouth each and every time were, what do you need and what can I do? And he has never faltered. He would work a 12-hour shift if need be, if someone couldn't come to work and they were sick. He worked at the circulation desk. He even did story time if someone was ill. We have lost a leader. We have lost an incredibly comical man. The moment that he was interviewed here, Suzanne and I were lucky enough to be part of that interview. The table was here, all the trustees lined up looking very stoic. They asked Suzanne and I to give Mark a tour of the building, and then all of a sudden, we brought him into the room and he gave me a little, that little comical look and said, well, what do you think? That was the Mark that we knew. Not only a wonderful employer, not only a caring man, but an incredibly funny person. We will miss him so very dearly. We have lost our leader. The community has lost the man who tried to drag this building into the next century. And Lindsay has lost her knight in shining armor. We will miss him.
I told you you'd hear again from Laurie Pierce. Laurie?
Mark's love for the library, I believe, came from his love of people. He was always eager to help anyone in any way he could. He knew that through a library he could offer them guidance, hope, joy, and companionship. Indirectly, he knew that a library brings many things to people, and his role was to lead them there. If they were not able to make it to the library, he brought the library to them. Mark took the time to listen to the needs of anyone in the community. It didn't always have to be someone needing something from the library. One card received recalled Mark's visit to a store in Amesbury. She writes, I got to know Mark when he came to our store. He would get the paper and something to eat when he had a late night. I have been there for 7 years, so I got to know him well. He would joke with me. He was a nice man and will sadly be missed. Another person shared their experience of their short encounter with Mark. I hardly knew him, but he spoke with me once about the plans for an expanded library when I had questions and had first settled in Amesbury. He was sincere and eloquent. The library continues to expand its diverse selection of books, and for that my husband and I are grateful to all the dedicated librarians, including Mark. We wish you peace and sympathy in the loss of a friend. Other expressions about Mark are, Mark was a wonderful man and a great asset to Amesbury and the library. He was always smiling and diligent at MVLC meetings and so helpful to me. Another expressed, Mark was a dedicated and hardworking colleague who really cared about libraries. Another one, I had the pleasure of knowing and working with Mark and many of you. He was a true gentleman, scholar, library professional, and a real humanitarian, and will be missed by many. A co-worker wrote, Mark was an amazing leader, an amazing friend. His kindness and dedication to Amesbury was profoundly touching. He truly was the best boss I ever worked for. He worked so hard for the people of Amesbury and the employees of the library, always doing so with a great sense of humor and kindness. Another person wrote, I can see besides a personal loss to you, Lindsay, and your family, the community has also lost a special, energetic librarian, a friendly colleague, a selfless person with his time, and a kind and sensitive person. It appears he was not only a gentleman, but a gentle man. Although your town is now lessened by Mark not being there, it will be a better place because he was there. From another writer, here are some words that they used to describe Mark. Passionate about the library, able to take things in stride, enthusiastic, supportive, a good listener, a common sense person, a seemingly inexhaustible supply of humor, and his attitude provided many examples for all of us to follow. Lastly, I would like to share with you a card that was sent to Lindsay sharing some of the great things he did for people. Unfortunately, Terry is not able to be with us today. Dear Mrs. Lankin, I know that we have not met, but I wanted to offer my condolences on the death of your dear husband, Mark. I am the public health nurse for the town of Amesbury, and I had the pleasure of working with Mark for 4 years. I want to tell you a couple stories of how positively Mark affected my work days. 2 years ago, I had to introduce flu shots to the children in my community. My workspace is very cramped and dreary, and there would be nothing cheerful about this for the children. I told Mark how I felt badly that I couldn't make it any nicer. And that evening, as I opened the next clinic, in walked the Christmas spirit, who presided to plank himself in a chair to talk to, entertain, and take wishes from children. Can you imagine this? It was so much fun. My Jewish library director playing Santa at a public flu clinic. Then a week later or so, I was very tired from an excessive workload with the clinics and starting up a medical reserve corps. Mark would catch me working very late and stopped in to chastise me and remind me to go home. I told him I loved what I was doing and he needn't worry. He then said, well, at the very least, how about a wish from the nurse? A personal wish. So I told him how I longed to go to Italy as my mother was born there, and the only thing stopping me was finances. Mark said I would have my wish and not to worry. The next day he appeared with a play check and tickets to Italy. To this day, I keep it posted as a reminder that it will happen someday. I could go on and on with the things that people have written and said about Mark, but I know that you are all here today because you too are touched by Mark, and know that we have been blessed by the short time he crossed our path, and I will miss him dearly. And he was my best friend.
Let's see. Cheryl. There she is. Cheryl.
Thank you. Over the last few weeks, I've had the privilege of spending a lot of time with Lindsay, who has shared with me a lot of incredible stories about Mark that I didn't even know about. And in coming here today, I wanted to try and put together like all of the things that I know about Mark and have seen him demonstrate in so many of the stories that we've heard. The one word that just comes to mind over and over again is what an incredible humanitarian he was. And in that spirit, I kind of came to my own conclusion that what I would like to do personally in honoring his spirit, to use an expression, I know that was a movie at one time, I would like to take some of what he embodied and pay it forward. So I've learned from Lindsay, for example, that Mark always made sure when he was out to eat and tipping a waiter or waitress in a restaurant, that he acknowledged that they might have had a difficult day and always tipped them extra. And that's something, ever since I heard that, the few times I've been out, that I have done. And I celebrate Mark, and I call it my paying it forward. Also, he was incredible with his smiles. No matter when you saw him, if you were having a bad day, he'd always stop, he'd make you laugh. And so I want to celebrate Mark by trying to smile more, by trying to listen more to people who may not be having a great day, and just take time out, because he cared so much about people. And he just, again, was such a great humanitarian. One of the other things that's near and dear to my heart, and I admired Mark for all of his efforts, is I believe in education and promoting education in any way possible. And I will do it with more effort and enthusiasm now, and I'm going to pay that forward in Mark's spirit. And on an ending note, something that I didn't know about is that his favorite candy bar was Milky Way. So you will find Milky Ways throughout the library. I hope you all take them and celebrate Mark, because I will, for the rest of my life, think of Milky Way in a new way, and it will bring a smile to my face. And I hope that everyone gets a chance to go out there and pay it forward in their own way. I just feel honored and privileged to have had him in my life. And he once did tell me that I was his best friend. Thank you.
One of the characteristics of Mark's life in Amesbury was that he was a Rotarian. Jim pointed out to me that really you have to see that. Now, we'll put the cats back, but... So now it's time to hear from some Rotarians. How about starting with Kathy Toomey?
It's hard to imagine that I could add anything to what you've heard about Mark today. It's all been so wonderful and so special. But I have had the pleasure of being in Rotary with Mark for pretty much the entire time he was here in Amesbury. And I was thinking about the fact that our motto is service above self, and that motto was coined probably close to 100 years ago, but it almost feels like they met Mark and then came up with a motto, because that is Mark. It was always service above self. And Terry and I were quickly scribbling down notes, what committee he was on. And then finally we said, what committee wasn't he on? At what time did he ever not be on so many of the committees? And of course, he's perhaps best known for his Meadow Muffins antics. We never quite knew what outfit he was going to show up in. And he was out there beating the bushes, raising money, so come right back to the town of Amesbury and do all kinds of good things. He also bartended at every fundraiser we had, because we had a firm motto: if there was alcohol involved, the donations would go up. So, I could just go on and on and on about Mark and the Rotary Club and his warm smile every time we came in. On a more personal note, and I wish I could claim he was my best friend, but he was a dear friend. He loved his Phillies, and I love my Red Sox. And anybody who knows that knows this story. And he would talk to me almost from April, actually he started talking to me in early March about spring training. And it went right through to playoffs. And he loved nothing. He was a tease. We talk about a sense of humor. He loved to tease me about Manny missing an easy pop fly, or Rent-A-Wreck missing something, or he teased me about my Red Sox all the time, and he just cracked me up that way. And then I think it was last year, I said to Mark, the Sox are playing the Phillies in Interleague, and I got tickets, so I want you to go to the game. And he's like, yeah, they don't think they are. And I said, oh yeah, they are. Then I went back up my schedule out, and I said, oops, sorry, it's Pittsburgh. And he was like, okay, I appreciate the thought. And on the most personal note of all, my son was very ill for 2 years. He's fine now. And Mark, every Thursday for the 2 years that my son was sick, asked me, how is your son doing? And he went through a stretch where he was harassing me to get his hat size, and I couldn't figure out what that was about. Well, sure enough, he went to Philly, and he came back with a fitted hat for my son, a Phillies hat, which he wears proudly in Mark's honor. And then, even after Mark himself was sick and my son was healthy, at least once a month, Kathy, how's Sean doing? Is he doing all right? And that's the kind of man Mark Lankin is. And there's a hole in Rotary that will never, ever be filled, because it was too special a man to fill those shoes.
We have a number of presidents of Rotary here today. Michelle, can I ask you to say a word? One of the other former presidents of Amesbury Rotary. Michelle, move it out of the way.
Mark was a very special person. He was always there to jump in and help with any Rotary event that was going on. He would call me weekly during the first few months of my presidency to see if I needed anything. When he told me in October that he wouldn't be at Rotary anymore, I said, please get better soon so you can come back to us. He was very concerned and felt that he was letting the club and me down. This obviously was not true. When I spoke to him on the phone in November, he was having a hard time speaking and clearly was uncomfortable from his treatments. But he wanted to know what the club was doing and what was going on with everyone involved. He ended the conversation by asking me if there was anything that he could do for us as a club. We talk about our aha moments in Rotary, the things that change us while changing the lives of others. But let us remember just how much Mark touched all of our lives. He truly made a difference in the lives of others, and he'll be greatly missed.
Continuing with the Rotarians and the former mayors and the friends of Mark, Nick Costello. Kick it out of the way. Okay.
Thank you, Mrs. Larkin, members of the Larkin family. In Mark's memory, I'll be brief. I couldn't help thinking, while I was listening to everybody, I knew a fellow one time who I considered a great orator. And whenever he concluded his speech or his talk, he would always say, if at night, just before you go to bed, and you're thanking God for the day that he's just given you, if you can stop for a minute and think of any nice word or kind deed you did for anybody or to anybody that made their day a little bit better, then you've had a very successful day and you'll get a good night's sleep. And with that, I'm sure that Mark slept well every night. And so, Bona Norta, good night, Mark, and shalom. God bless.
We go from all those mayors to the current mayor, Thatcher Keaton. Okay.
Thank you, really,
Do you want to stand up, or do you want to?
I don't know what this thing is. Is it a trampoline?
It's supposed to make it easy for the TV cameras.
Oh, okay. I feel tall all of a sudden. Well, for one, it's an honor for me to be here to memorialize Mark Lankin. I want to thank Lindsay and Reverend Shirley and the staff for putting this all together for us who knew Mark, maybe didn't get to work with him on a day-to-day basis. And I enjoy hearing the stories of the humor of Mark, and I was witness to Santa Claus that night with his little elf, Ron Kuntz, running around, and that's a great memory. I've only got to know Mark in the last year and a half during my term as mayor, but I've had the opportunity to see the impact that he has had on this community. I look at Mark as a dedicated public servant, and I mean that in the best meaning of the words, public servant. Mark's efforts were never about himself, but rather about what he could do for others. It's probably the traits that make one interested in becoming a librarian: the desire to help others to think, to know, to explore, and to better understand themselves and the world around them. Mark dedicated his efforts to those ends both here within the walls of this library and throughout the greater community. Mark may no longer be with us in body, but he is definitely here with us in spirit. And I was fortunate to see that spirit just this past Thursday. I attended the GED graduation ceremony at Northern Essex Community College. At this graduation were about 24 young people who had completed their GED examinations and were receiving a formal graduation ceremony in recognition of their success. Each of the graduates were there to receive their GED certificates and not their high school diplomas because of some circumstance or negative forces in their life that caused them to turn off the traditional path for completing high school. The students were proud of their accomplishment that night. The parents and the friends in the room were proud, and especially the instructors, administrators, and sponsors of the programs were proud of the students' accomplishments, and several are here today. But these students were there, whether they realize it or not, because of the work that Mark Lankin and others like him performed for the community. See, Mark was very active in spreading literacy among those less advantaged to give them the opportunity to succeed in life. He was a leading force in Amesbury Literacy and Learning Partnership, and that work to get kids who haven't completed high school to read and learn and to earn a GED so that they too would have a shot at a prosperous life. So whatever negative forces that were working on these kids that caused them to drop out of high school, they had Mark as a positive force, bringing them back in and helping them to succeed. These students may never have known anything about the work that Mark performed, but that's the way Mark was. It didn't matter to him that they knew or that the community knew. All that mattered to Mark was that he made a difference in their lives and gave us all a better community in which to live. That was Mark's spirit, and I witnessed it last Thursday and can tell you this spirit lives on. And for that, I say thank you to Mark for what you've done for us, this community, and may you rest in peace. And with that, I'd like to ask Jim Babin to come up to make a special announcement from the Rotary. I'd stand next to you, but we'd probably fall off.
I'll stand right here, that's okay. A few years ago, the Amesbury Rotary Club raised money and donated the fountain that's out in front of the library in remembrance of the 75 years that the Amesbury Rotary Club has been founded in the town of Amesbury. I think it's very appropriate, and I feel very honored to announce to the people that are here today that the town of Amesbury, the Amesbury Public Library, the library trustees, and the Amesbury Rotary Club have decided to donate that fountain in memory of Mark Allen Lankin.
I know there are some people that I've missed. So if let's just invite people that I've missed who wanted to speak to come up now. And I'm just, where are we going to start? Chris? Nick says Chris should come, so.
Yes.
I do what Nick says.
Hi, I'm Christine Johnson, and I'm representing the library trustees today. And I just want to clarify something. Lindsay, I think he was my best friend. He spent a lot of time during the summers on the telephone with me. And when we were going through the vote for the library, he was calling me all the time at work. Please don't put that in the paper. My job might be in jeopardy. But on behalf of the library trustees, I'd like to share a few thoughts on Mark. I had the privilege of knowing Mark Lankin for the 8 years that I've been a library trustee. The last 2 years, I was fortunate to serve as chairperson and to work closely with Mark during that time. Mark held the pulse of the Amesbury Public Library in his hand and his heart. His dedication to the institution, the staff, and the trustees were just one of his many assets. He was an advocate for the library as well as for the town of Amesbury. His enthusiastic energy and positive attitude surpassed anyone I've ever known. Mark's quick wit and dry sense of humor were an enjoyment to anyone who had the good fortune to spend any amount of time with him. His undaunted drive for the building project for the library was unflappable in his determination to see it through to its fruition. When obstacles began being placed in our quest for a new library, he continued to display a level of high professionalism and composure despite the adversities. Mark's legacy to me has been, I was thinking about this last night, is the importance of living life to the fullest. I never knew a man who was so busy. I think of myself as being busy, but I'm nothing in comparison to what Mark Lankin could fit into a day. It was a joy to have known Mark, and I'm truly going to miss him. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Mary Durant, and I was a trustee at the Nesmith Library in Windham, New Hampshire, when Mark came on board. And I just want to acknowledge to Lindsay and to everyone how hard and tirelessly Mark worked for us to attain our goal. And I always thought he was my best friend too. But I think I can truthfully say maybe I have known him longer. And he always thought of my husband as another grandfather, is what he told me. And we shared many, many personal and professional ones. But he was one of the dearest I have ever known. And he will always live in my heart. And thank you.
I think I represent the library card holders. I've been coming to this library since the 50s, and I have to say I don't think I've seen a director that exhibited such energy and love for his job with vision and actually, almost pulling it off. And it was a great misfortune, but I've never seen a director work so hard and to expand this library. I liked him because of his humor. He came from Philadelphia. I peppered him with questions about Wilt Chamberlain, Wayne Hightower, Fraser. And, but the one thing I liked about him the most, I think, was his love for his job. There's nothing like a good reference librarian. And if I knew he came from Stanford, I would have asked him about McEnroe and Tiger Woods.
Hi, my name is Ellen Dow, and I represent the Friends of the Amesbury Public Library. I served as Secretary of the Friends of the Amesbury Public Library for the last 9 years, and the timing of Mark's career as Director of our library roughly paralleled my tenure as Secretary of the Friends. And try as I might, his effects on me personally, on the Friends, on the library, and on the fabric of our community are so strong and so indelible that I can't remember the library before Mark. Mark's vision and priorities for the library were healthy and strong. His tireless work for the expansion project, literacy programs, strengthening our technological services, and in excellent collaboration with Margie Walker, making the library a welcoming and relevant place for our young adults were all right on target. It's hard to imagine how Mark managed to accomplish so much because he was never holed up in an office. More often than not, he was right at the desk, greeting all comers warmly and with genuine concern, taking the time to chat and catch up, always. We all know how much energy it takes to maintain relationships, and Mark gave so very much of himself personally and professionally to each and every one of us. The only time Mark didn't come to Friends meetings, which were held monthly, was when he had a conflicting meeting, and he certainly attended a host of meetings. Meetings of the Friends, the Amesbury Learning and Literacy Partnership, the Expansion Committee, the Expansion Fundraising Committee, the Rotary, the MVLC, Merrimack Valley Library Consortium, the Municipal Council, the Alliance for Amesbury. I used to feel so badly for him driving back to Manchester so often and so late, especially during our long winters. Mark was very appreciative of the Friends' financial and other support of the library services and programs, and he took nothing for granted in any way. In fact, he was right in there with us, always offering to take care of some aspect of our work himself. Mark was always positive, and his ready smile, sense of humor, and compassion were such a support to us all, even during the hardest times of the many years of the expansion project. I would go so far as to say that Mark was an honorary Amesbury resident and a VIP at that. He was also a very, very good friend who I will miss very dearly.
Last call. Okay.
I had absolutely no plans of saying anything today because I know how choked up I get. But I feel it would be terribly remiss not to say anything, to not extend how appreciative Anita and I are for everything that you guys did today and how wonderful it was to listen to all these amazing stories and to know that you guys loved him as much as we did. This is unbelievable to me, to look out and see a sea of people in this heat, to spend this amount of time, to see how many people got up to say these wonderful things about him. When we were up here right before Mark passed away, we got to meet many of you and listen to the different stories that you had to tell. And I learned that there were kinds of muffins other than chocolate chip and blueberry, which I never knew and had no idea what you were talking about when you first spoke. But I just wanted to say thank you on our behalf. I think this is a wonderful event. I've never been to anything like this, and you guys are great. You're special. Thank you.
Okay. Now, you are going to sign the guest book. Perhaps you're going to write 2 or 3 lines. If you haven't already spoken and you'd like to speak to the camera privately, you may do that. Other than that, I think our afternoon has now become much more informal. There is cold drinks and lots of food back in the teen room. The teen room back there. And we hope that you will. Are you going to? Please.
This is for all you Rotarians who don't know about Mark's girlfriends. Now, all of you best friends don't know that Mark had another side. All of Lindsay's friends were Mark's girlfriends. And some of us were called wife number 1, wife number 2, wife number 3. Now, we were really his best friends. And every single year, to show you how dedicated he was, he would call me up and say, "It's Rotary time again. You gonna buy a ticket?"
Of
And
course.
he would say, "You don't have to. he said to me one day, he said, just put the check in the mail. So I put the check in the mail, and that cow, if you notice on the table, on the food table, there is a cow, a little toy cow, and on that cow is a little Persian cat for Lindsay that is an ornament, and the cat is praying. And a little note from me saying that cow better do me well this year, Mark, and you better be praying for me, because wife number 2, our friend Louise, the cow hit her number, and that really got to me. He called me up and he said, I don't know what she won, 500 or 1,000, and she called me up and went, ha ha. So I want you to know I'm rooting for the cow and I'm rooting for me, and I will be very glad to continue the tradition of helping you guys with that cow and selling more tickets to Louise, because she can really afford it. I hope she's here.
Who's got the tickets tonight? Who's got the tickets?
Thank you so much. Mark was very special to all of us. I've been doing some writing lately, and he could not talk, but he read a lot of the work that I have been doing and gave me some. And there's Louise, who just said, ha ha. I'm glad you're here. Anyway, want to buy a ticket, Louise? You can afford about 50. But anyway, Mark was special to all of us, and Lindsay and all of us are great friends, and you know, his girlfriends are really his best friends. Thank you.
We are adjourned. You, Chuck, that was wonderful. And even the well, he was lucky from walking out. I just think it was wonderful to have Gang and Professor, his brother, John Wallace. TC, yeah. Actually, yeah, she was the last one, wasn't it? Yeah. You're doing good.
Mark and Lindsay are my neighbors, and this is for Lindsay. Lindsay, it's been a long road, and when Mark first came to ask Kyle to mow the lawn, and as winters have come and passed, and snow shoveling and digging out, and seeing Mark and you tirelessly come home from long days of work, I often admire how hard you worked for many reasons. One thing that I admired the most was that Mark came to Kyle and asked him if he'd like a little job. And what he left him with is a lot of confidence. And I think that that's the most important thing that he probably learned from him. What I got was a great surprise. My mother died in March of 2005, as you and Mark both had known. And it was kind of a funny year. And Mark had said some things to me about when his mom had died quite some time ago, how that made him feel, and that there were still times where it was hard. When Christmas Day came, and I had noticed that you had not gone home to Pennsylvania because you hadn't gone home in November either, I was making dinner, and I thought to myself, it seems absurd that you would be sitting at home. So, as I started to plan out what I was going to make for dinner, I said, well, we should have Mark and Lindsay come. And to my surprise, you did. What I didn't really realize what I was doing is trying to compensate for what I was supposed to be doing on Christmas Day. I played with my kids. I watched the toys come out all over the place. But it was the first Christmas without my mom. Her spirit for Christmas was intense. She loved it. And I didn't have it. I just didn't feel like I had it. Mark gave me my Christmas spirit. You both gave it back to me. When you said yes, you'd come to dinner, I could do something for someone. And I felt good because I gave something that wasn't bought, that you couldn't order online, and it felt so good. And to know what I didn't know then, and I know now, for it to be his last meal, and such a special day and a special meal, he gave to me my Christmas spirit back. The art and the gift to just give, because it feels good and people are there to be loved. They say that everything happens for a reason, and I do believe that now more than ever, because unbeknownst to me, he would not be here, and he would leave me with the memory of my first Christmas day without being able to call her and tell her all about what the kids had been doing. And although I videotaped the whole thing, as I have every Christmas, I realized that I wasn't going to be able to send that to her. That was very hard, but you made it easy, because now I remember what I did to keep myself so busy when I miss my mother so very much. And all the kids did that. They also showed you all the toys and the smile on his face, and he had a good meal and a good dessert, and we had a good laugh, and I feel very blessed that he gave me my Christmas spirit back. Thank you, Lindsay. And he left me his best friend.
That's our show for today. I hope you enjoyed the memorial service. Please, work hard, stay healthy, and take time to care for someone. From our town, bye-bye.
Okay. Just like Michelangelo into the blue on heavenly wings. Cargo hand bones don't take off, no smoke, no mirror, no strings. I can't take off these dark shades. I can only say how it's too beautiful. Our town on TV. Our town, there's you and me. Upside down, hanging out of an airplane.